Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, how you doing? Thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Always appreciate your 5-star reviews. If you get the time, I know it's an inconvenience, but if you ever get the time to scroll down to the bottom of the menu of shows at Apple Podcasts and leave a written review and a 5-star review, that helps advance our goals and our show more than anything else. Or that 5-star review at Spotify. Grateful that you listen. I should also remind you that if you ever want to watch the video version of this for any reason, when YouTube allows it, we're on YouTube. And also you can check out the show on Rumble every day because that's where free speech lives all the time. So there is a video version of this for those of you that only listen to the audio, rumble.com and YouTube. It's all linked at chrisstigall.com. There's also a link and another video to watch about our title sponsor, John Ruhlman, and usmedicalplan.com, the guy that makes health insurance as affordable as he can possibly find it for you, but still covers you well. You know, the thing is, people ask me all the time, Chris, if I call John and he gives me a cheaper rate, does that mean I'm going to get cut rate insurance? No, not at all. John will shop with 80 different private health insurers that he has access to. He'll run the numbers on your current insurance plan. Maybe you've already got the best insurance out there for you. It could be. He'll tell you if so. But the goal is to, number one, find you a more affordable price tag on insurance. If it exists, it's probably like 30 to 60% cheaper out there. That's generally what he saves people. I mean, I know people that have saved thousands of dollars by making this phone call for their families or themselves as individuals. You know, if you're a senior and you need that supplemental insurance plan to go along with your Medicare, he can cover it. If you're a small business owner and you want to extend insurance benefits to your employees, but it's breaking your budget to afford those premiums to cover your employees, let John go do some work for you. And the great thing is he's an advocate. If you ever have any kind of issues with a doctor's bill or a hospital bill and your insurance, John and his team advocate for you. In fact, they'll jump in right now if you're in the middle embroiled in some kind of thing to help you transition into a new program and do your battles for you. That's what I really love. It's one-stop shopping in a area of our lives that's often very bureaucratic and time-consuming. John tries to make this as easy, affordable, and trouble and worry-free as he can. usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or 877-410-4321. Know why anybody thought Barack Obama wasn't going to endorse her. Does anybody not understand how this works by now? Why did anybody think Barack Obama was not going to endorse Kamala Harris? We really are getting to a point where people making up storylines, I'm really getting irked. I must say, we waste an inordinate amount of time dreaming up fictitious nonsense fantasy scenarios on our side. I have seen so much of it online over the last days. Well, I think what's going to happen is Barack hasn't endorsed Kamala because he's not confident she can win. And so he's going to swoop in at the convention, and he's going to offer up Michelle Obama. He was never going to run. He never wanted her to run. They don't need to run. I don't know how many times I have to say this. It makes me exhausted. I know most of you understand this, but just for some of you who just live for conspiracy, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama do not need to physically run for anything to control this party. They own it lock, stock, and barrel now. Why do you think Michelle Obama has to physically be in the White House to control this agenda? And why does anybody think that Barack Obama was waiting to endorse Cacklebritches for some reason other than, best case, he wanted to demand his pick for Veep? They have likely already decided on who the Veep pick is going to be, and Barack Obama was using it as leverage. There was some reason he was holding out. There was some reason he was dragging his feet. Maybe to create kook conspiracy theory plot lines. There's a possibility. They enjoy when we go kook. They do, you know. They sit around and they laugh. They love when we come up with nonsense. Because they figure if they feed into that stuff, it just distracts us. They know the mental game well. They play 3D chess, while oftentimes our side plays checkers. So withholding his endorsement got everybody talking. Why is that? What could it be? Does he not like her? Does he not want her? Is he thinking about swooping in the convention? No. They want to create talk. They want a news cycle. Remember, they're still, 2 weeks away from their convention? We're in a phase right now, they're in the honeymoon phase, where, again, the sugar rush thing, what they're trying to do each day is to create their own news cycle. This is something Trump did and does very well. How long did Trump milk the who's my Veep pick gonna be? If you're on his email list, you remember, because you got him every day. Am I announcing my Veep pick today? Am I announcing my Veep pick tomorrow? Chris, I get the emails, right? Like 5 times a day. Chris. There are all these solicitation emails with my name in it. They're very clever now. Chris, could it be you as my VP? Literally, I got one of those. I'm not kidding. Did you get that?
Yeah, I love that, the asking. It's just like, hey, Eddie, who should be my VP pick?
Chris, should I announce my VP pick this weekend? I got a month of those. So why don't everybody understand that that's exactly what this Barack Obama thing is? When's Obama going to announce? When's he going to endorse? When's he going to? Okay, so he finally does. So there's a little more chum in the news cycle waters coalescing around Kamala Harris. Did he hold out for some kind of, as I say, pick for Veep? Did he want a seat at the table? Perhaps. Hard to know for sure. Carville is out there throwing some cold water on everybody's excitement, though, over cackle britches. I saw him yesterday. I put the picture up on social media. I saw him in front of his liquor cabinet, and I wondered what it meant. Here's why, I think. We figured out Carville's in front of his liquor cabinet yesterday morning.
Well, I hate to do this, but I got to be the curmudgeon. I have to be the skunk at the garden party. This is too triumphalist, okay? This is everybody's giddy. I look at the coverage, and it's great, and if I had to write a play about what I think it's going to be like, it would be entitled The Ice Pick Cometh. Okay? Get ready, they're coming. All right? And it's good. Everybody should feel good and liberated and everything else. But if we don't win the election, we hadn't done anything. We haven't changed the temperature in America. We haven't changed anything. And I think the vice president, I hope that, her campaign is getting ready. I hope they'll listen to my friend and fellow New Orleanian, Don Brazil, who actually, I think, has the same kind of view of politics that I do. And they're coming at us, and they're going to keep coming. And this kind of giddy elation is not going to be very helpful much longer, because that's not what we're going to be faced with. And I think the vice president, put it in athletic terms, needs a really good cut man in a corner, because she's getting ready to get cut. That's
Let me show you the polling. No, hey, we welcome all. We welcome all views, all points, and I know you're a practitioner of the game, so you know when the game has 15 weeks, 100 days left, and what you're up against. You don't want too much celebrating to extend your sports analogies. You don't want to celebrate before you're in the end zone. I think people get that, even if they are feeling very different than they did last week. Very early. Francesca is absolutely... Go ahead, and then I'll show you the polls. Go ahead.
No. I was finished. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, Francesca's right. It's very early to judge any polling because it's all new information. It's all going to take a while to shake out. But to the extent that we learn anything from these state polls, she's already doing better than Biden was if they're both somewhat known quantities. Trump's margin here pretty tight in states like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Pretty much tied in Wisconsin. Harris improving.
She's doing
Biden
better than the
by
corpse.
A nudge there. Depends on the state. And again, I want to tell viewers, as I always do, these are within the margin of error. That means that if you're plus or minus 1 or 2 there, it's plus or minus 3.4 in the margin. So it's statistically speaking tied.
This is sad.
But Carville's those polls out to
Carville's got to be coming out of his exoskeleton here.
There is no doubt that the polling has gotten better. and it's, it's kind of 45-45. It just sounds like I don't pay that much attention. Pay attention to polling averages, and Wasserman now does it. And there's no doubt it's gotten 2, 3, maybe, touch more somewhere in some places. But it's still the same country, all right? Might be a different mood. And all I'm saying is, good, bang your helmets against the locker. That's fine. But you still, when you go out there, you're facing Alabama. And just get ready, because these Republicans, you're right, they got caught off guard, but they're going to get their sea legs. And we're having to get a whole campaign started and stuff. And all I'm doing is saying, watch out, people. Don't get too far out there. If we don't win this, all this good feeling is going to evaporate and be all for naught.
Yeah, see, Carville, that's good. Carville is warning them that he has feelings very reminiscent of Granny Crooked Hacker, is what he's saying. I remember everybody felt confident and was doing an end zone dance and said there was no way Trump was going to beat the woman. I remember, says Carville, I am not going to get ahead of myself on this one, and you shouldn't either. He said this is still the same country, and by the way, he just likened the Republicans to Alabama, which in college football terms, which I don't follow, that's a pretty big deal. That's quite a compliment, isn't it, Fast Eddie?
Yeah, I would not think he would think of us that way, but all right, I'll take it.
Alabama out there. You don't give up at halftime because you're beating Alabama. There's still Alabama out there.
Hey, I don't look at the Republican Party that way. But
I don't either. Maybe Trump, but not the Republican Party. So, all right, Obama has endorsed cackle britches, and this is very exciting, I guess.
Kamala.
Hello. Hi.
Hey there.
Hi, I had no idea you'd call me at this stage time.
Together. Oh, it's good to hear you both.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're going to have some fun with this too, aren't we?
Do you think the Obamas were rolling their eyes at one another? Really? Do you suppose they were going, all right, already, you're kind of overselling it. Like, we're trying to come in and be cool, and you already sound canned and phony. And doesn't she? This is why. Now, look, I'm not just like James Carville warned. I'm not going to get cocky out there. I don't want to get overconfident out there. It's true, we shouldn't. But this is exactly why Hillary Clinton didn't connect and lost. And this is perhaps why Kamala Harris won't connect and will lose. And the one thing that Kamala Harris has that Barack Obama didn't, I was just saying this to a friend of mine yesterday, we know who she is. We didn't know who he was. Barack Obama to most of the nation was an absolutely unknown guy who showed up at the convention one year in 2004. I'll never forget it. Christine was pregnant with our first baby. I will always remember this. She was a school teacher at the time. And you know what that means. Fresh out of college school teachers, they're all friends with one another. So she's friends with all these 20-something-year-old school teachers fresh out of college. What's that mean? They're all liberals. Every one of them. And so they throw us a baby shower. It's in 2004. Now, in 2004, summer of, that's when the Democrats held their convention, and out came this fresh-faced Illinois senator nobody'd heard of. And at the time, Joe Biden and Harry Reid and some of the elder statesmen of the Democrat Party said how exciting he was. This clean, bright, articulate black guy. That was how they described him. Go look it up. I'm not making that up. That is how they talked. That's how the Democrats talked about Barack Obama. Clean, bright, and articulate. He was a game changer at that convention. Nobody heard of him, though. And he gave a speech like nobody's ever given a speech. Everybody was dazzled. Man, could he speechify. By that fall, as we were heading into Christine's next school year with her colleagues, they held a big baby shower for Christine, and they made her a onesie that was rather prescient. You know, a onesie for a baby? That's that thing, that one-piece thing that you strap on around their diaper. They made her one. You know what it said? Obama 2008.
Wow.
How about that? How's that for some fast forward?
I remember my Duder's onesie was Dr. Fauci greater than Dr. Seuss. You got an Obama 08? Oh, man.
That's right. We made a onesie for Eddie, little Eddie, that said Dr. Seuss is greater than Dr. Fauci. Do you still have that, by the way? You should keep that.
Oh yeah, I think I actually have it up in one of the rooms in my house.
Don't ever get rid of that. I'm sorry that I got rid of this onesie, if only for historical posterity. They made it as a gag gift because they knew I was a conservative. So as a gag at the baby shower, all these teachers are sitting around and just really chuckling. They think this is hilarious, and I open it up and I hold it, and it's my baby's onesie, and it says Obama 2008. And I mean, but my point is, no one knew who he was. And he gave that speech and everyone went, whoa! Holy crap, there's the one. He's our savior. Hallelujah. And they began to worship at this man's feet. And by the time he declared it was a fait accompli, nobody was going to stop him. And who would we run? John McCain, the old hardware store owner. Looks like a Scooby-Doo villain. That's who we ran. The only thing that helped him was Sarah Palin. No one knew who Barack Obama was. And so, as Rush Limbaugh taught me, and probably you if you were listening back then, and it always stuck with me, everyone who was on the left in this country projected onto Barack Obama whatever they wanted because nobody knew who he was. And so he showed up and he would speechify and he'd say, there are no red states, no blue states, just the United States. And he had the echoing that, they put the reverb on his mic and they built Greek columns behind him. He was the first to ever go into a stadium. I was there that year. He went into what was called Invesco at Mile High at the time. Best seats I've ever had to an event in my life, sadly, was that convention, that particular night at Invesco. I was in the press box, beautiful night, stadium full of people, like it was a concert. Greek columns, reverb on the mic. People of America, people of Earth. I'll never forget it. And you're watching this like, holy crap. I mean, it was like a freight train coming down the tracks. You knew. And we had this guy over here. Hey, let's bomb Iran. It was over. It was over before it started. But nobody knew who he was. Now, those of us who did the research were jumping up and down going, hello, have you read his books? Do you know who his friends are? Have you heard what his preacher says? These people hate the country. They hate it. And people were like, oh my God. People were just hypnotized. I mean, getting the vapors, throwing their underwear at him. Oh, listen to his speeches. 8 years of destruction and division later, we got Donald Trump. For a minute, because the sugar rush of Obama wore off and old Granny Crooked Hacker Hillary Clinton thought she could cash in on the goodwill. Didn't work for her, did it? She was a known commodity. People knew who she was. Nobody liked her. Nobody trusted her. So the magic of the one did not rub off on Granny Crooked Hacker. And so now here we go again. This time with Kamala Harris. Now, is she as well-known a commodity as Mrs. Clinton? No. But is she much more well-known than Barack Obama? Yes. She's been around. People know who she is. She's a United States Senator for a little while. She was the Attorney General of California before that. She's been Vice President for 3.5 years, even though they're trying to pretend she wasn't. She's been the border czar, even though they're trying to pretend she wasn't. She has a record, and it's a bad one, and it's a radical one. There are hours and hours and hours of interviews and speeches and social media posts from this person. We know who she is. The question is, can Republicans define her? We talked about this on the show yesterday. Dave McCormick did it first and best, believe it or not, in Pennsylvania. Devastating ad, really effective. The Trump people, I was on Instagram yesterday, Trump's team on Instagram, they've got some really great ads explaining, reminding, and defining who Cackle Britches is, and good. That's exactly what everyone should be doing right now, explaining and defining who she is and where we've been with her. She has a record. Obama did not. And everybody was so excited at the prospect of history. And because he had no resume, people just projected onto him what they hoped he would mean. They hoped he would mean unity. They hoped he would mean finally we could stick a fork in racism forever as a discussion. And it would show that we whites and we blacks all together could come together and vote and rally around one guy who was going to unify and heal the country. And once and for all, how many whites do you know that voted for the guy ultimately, and you know why, they probably even said it in polite conversation, because they really wanted to show once and for all they weren't racist. This was their... What's that?
I was called racist for that was the line in college, because I was in college then.
Yeah.
I was said, well, if you don't vote for Obama, you are racist.
That's right. This was the opportunity for all the guilty whites to prove to their friends, I'm not racist. Watch. I'm going to stick an Obama sign in my yard. And thanks to that white guilt, it ushered in 8 years of Marxism and division, the likes of which this country has never seen and may never soon recover from. And we're still living a third term of it today, because the husk ushered it in as the Trojan horse candidate to continue more of that destruction, but not with his name on the door, this time with the husk's name on the door. And hand-selected was this woman, Kamala Harris. This was always the design. It was never in question. I don't know why people were... What? Is Obama not going to endorse her? Of course he's going to endorse her. He partnered them. He engineered this entire thing. How do you explain a woman that didn't get a single vote in the Democrat primary became the vice presidential pick to Barack Obama's 8-year Veep? How do you explain it then? If it's not Obama's influence, why would she win? Why would Joe Biden... A 60-year, and by the way, if there's anybody that's a racist, check Joe Biden's record. Why would Joe Biden come out and say something like, whoever I pick's going to be a black woman, you can guarantee? First of all, what's the pool there? I mean, how many black women did you have to choose from on the Democrat side? Really? Maxine Waters? I mean, there weren't a lot. Stacey Abrams? I mean, not exactly, Mount Rushmore figures, right? So... Who do you pick? Well, literally the only somewhat high-profile, how do you say this? But just better stay away from it. It's Kamala. I mean, they said, make it her. And so he did. There have been endless reports about how the Bidens and Kamala Harris hate one another's guts, particularly Dr. Jill and Kamala Harris. This was an arranged political marriage from the jump, and it was arranged by Barack Obama. And it was always, and I don't mean to keep rehashing this, but I know there are new people coming across the show all the time in a busy season like this, and so let me just say one more time quickly, Cliff's Notes version. You need to continue an Obama agenda without Obama? Well, you stick the old man in place of Obama. And after 4 years of Trump chaos, the old man was going to come along and make everything normal and comfortable again and take us all back to the politics that everybody knew and felt comfortable with. And out of nowhere, he picks Kamala Harris as his Veep. Huh? Ah, well, who cares? At least old Joe's back, and I'm comfortable. A familiar name who's going to restore normalcy. Well, here we are. 4 more years of division and chaos and inflated economy and open borders and crime and wars breaking out around the world. And then he says, I'm not going to step down. And then he disappears for 5 days with COVID. And then Chicken scratches his signature to a form letter that says, never mind, upon further review, I'm stepping down. Uh-huh. And says, oh, yeah, and by the way, I'm completely... I can imagine, literally imagine his arm twisted behind his back. And I'm very... Ouch! And I want to endorse Kamala. Kamala as my... So she's the nominee. And then everybody, is Obama going to endorse her? Of course he was going to endorse her. If anything, he wanted to hold back and make sure everything was in place. All right, we rushed this thing. It didn't go exactly the way we wanted. We had to make the old man do some stuff he didn't want to do, but it's all okay. Cackle Britches is in place. Good. Now, how about Veep? What are we going to do? Have we made the calls yet? Who's it going to be? They had to sit down and discuss this. Obama is methodical. He's not going to throw his name in this thing and stamp his approval on this thing until everything's in place. That means she has picked a vice presidential candidate. You've already heard the leaks. I really do have every reason to believe it's going to be Josh Shapiro. He is the perfect kind of Obama-like pick. He is a huckster. He is one of these guys that goes out and does nothing, but is sort of a blank slate of a resume, but tells everybody how busy he is and how accomplished he is and how everyman he is and what a dad he is and how cool he is. And what's he done? We don't really know, but he always tells us he gets excrement done. Just like Obama. Same deal. Don't really know what they did, but always claiming to do something. And says it really purty. So I can imagine this arranged marriage that Barack Obama orchestrated is now officially signed off on. And so he and Michelle staged this little call. Oh, Michelle's there too, Barack and Michelle. I'm so surprised at this surprise phone call that I had a camera set up for and rolling on. What a surprise. The only problem for the Obamas is, of course, you're counting on this woman to carry out the sale. And I don't know that she can do it just based on that little performance yesterday. Because at her core is a phony. She has lied about who she is. She has covered up what she doesn't know. Her word salad circular talking is because she really has no clue of anything of which she speaks. She is famous for being nasty. She's gone through, what is the story I had earlier this week? She's gone through how much staff? Like 90% turnover or something since she became vice president?
I think she only has 4 members left from her staff when she started as vice president.
Yeah, she's an incompetent, vicious dolt. And I'm sorry, all the polish from Team Obama that they want to throw at her is not going to cover up for that when she's actually made to speak. You know, she's out there beating her chest about, well, it seems Trump doesn't want to debate me anymore. I think Trump is playing this brilliantly, by the way. You know what Trump says? Just like the J.D. Vance debate before, they're like, why in the world would we debate you? You people don't even have a nominee yet. Why don't you slow your roll? Why should we commit to a debate with you when we're not even sure you're going to be the nominee? She's not the nominee yet, you know that. Has anybody stopped to consider that? She's still not officially their nominee. We've all just said inside of 1 week, oh, well, then I guess it's over and that's it. I mean, I do think she will be, but I'm just saying, what's the rush? You see how they're trying to set the terms all the time? Just like they set the terms of course, now, the first debate with the husk was to throw him out. It was still weird, but Trump was like, okay, you want to have a debate in June? Sure, what the hell? He knew it was going to go well. He wasn't worried and sweating the husk. As it turned out, we were watching a live broadcast political assassination. So Trump said, no harm, no foul. Sure, I'll be a part of that. But I'm not going to walk into this one voluntarily. You people don't even have a nominee. And until I know she's your nominee, I'm not going to commit to debating her. But as soon as you commit to her, sure. Then we'll sit down and talk about it. So he's not going to legitimize her. So the Obama's trying to give her a little boost yesterday, but again, you listen to that call. And it was the first time I went, oh, yeah. Despite all this brat summer crap and all of this TikTok youth garbage that they're trying with her, and she's on RuPaul's Drag Race yesterday. And I mean, it is, oh, folks. I mean, you're going to need to go to Dr. Spinato for a cavity check when this is over. They are going to make her so syrupy, sweet, pop sugar, blah, blah, blah. She's going to be on Drew Barrymore, and she's going to be a Mama, and we'll be crying, and the drag queens, and the, TikTok, and Snapchat, and I mean, we're going to be treated to all that garbage. But at the end of the day, the country is going to, at some point, pay attention to her record. She will be defined. She's being defined now and explained. Really not even defined, explained. More money will be spent in explaining to her what is going, explaining to the country who she is. These focus groups over at NBC, I don't know if you've seen this yet. MSNBC did a focus group with some women yesterday about her. Devastating. MSNBC. Asking women what they thought about cackle britches, and she said, many of them said, she doesn't really come off as that smart. Literally what they said. I don't think she's very smart. I don't know what she's accomplished. Well, she was in charge of the border, and she didn't. They really don't want that border thing sticking. So, the magic of Obama. I am not confident it works this time. I'm not even confident the pop sugar rush of culture is going to help her, because she's still her. Just like Granny Crooked Hacker was her. These are known commodities, and they're phonies, and they're not particularly likable or trustworthy or accomplished. They've been thrusted onto people. Hillary has always been thrust onto people. Cacklebridges, they keep telling us why this is historic and we must elect them. It worked for Obama, but he was a unique case. Again, I'm just like James Carville warned, not getting cocky here, but he's warning them. I don't know why you people think this is going to be easy. This is a heavy lift. So you're excited we don't have a corpse on the ticket anymore. Good for you. I guess celebrate for half a second, but this is halftime. Well, maybe more like the third quarter, and they're trailing at the moment. And he's worried. Well, if you haven't noticed, inflation is still at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. And a new central bank digital currency is on the way. That could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It seems like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. And so what do you do to help protect yourself? Did you know you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or a 401k with zero taxes or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing it right now. And you should consider it too if you want to preserve and protect your wealth. And there's only one company that I would recommend to you to do that. It's a company called Preserve Gold. Now, they'll go over all your options and make the process of acquiring precious metals easy and simple. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited with the Better Business Bureau. They have hundreds of 5-star reviews. So you know you're in good hands. Just text Stigall to 50505. Again, text Stigall, my last name, Stigall, to 50505 and get an exclusive offer for everybody that's tuned into this show. You're going to get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase or a retirement account rollover. Yeah, that's huge. Don't wait. Text my name, Stigall, to 50505 today. Get your free gold and silver investment guide and take that first step. Again, that's Stigall, Stigall. Text it to 50505 and get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. And here, what a week. Every week seems to be what a week. I feel like we say that every week. Wondering if we're going to get through the next 48 hours without some huge news. I asked Christine, do you think we're going to have a weekend without some shoe dropping, some big news, some big bomb? I don't know. Maybe never another weekend until the election's over. A guy that knows full well the importance of this fall because it's kind of all on his shoulders in many senses of the word. Although I don't actually believe that, but I'm sure that many people kind of look at him as he is the lead dog. He runs the RNC. Michael Watley, he's the chair of the RNC. And first of all, Mr. Watley, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's our first conversation. And before we get into anything, I want to congratulate you on what was a tour de force convention. As a Republican, I've never been more proud to watch a Republican convention. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. I tell you, we were extremely happy. You know, you think about all of the speeches that we heard. You know, we had the senators and the governors, and we heard, you know, from candidates all across the country. But what really stuck out to me were a couple of things. You know, the first was the real Americans that we brought in. That were able to tell their story, you know, about their families, about their heartaches, about, you know, how America needs to do better. And that was so powerful, you know, that really in putting, you know, those conversations in prime time, because the whole theme of the convention was we wanted real Americans to hear from real Americans. And so I'm particularly proud that we were able to do that. Of course, you know, having the Trump family come out there and be able to speak as powerfully as they did, you know, and a powerful shout out to 14-year-old Kai, the president's granddaughter, who I think just stole the show, you know, in terms of the family, you know, positions and just saying, you know, I love my grandpa, you know, and he's a great man. And that was really powerful. And of course, you know, we got to hear from J.D. Vance, you know, and really introduce himself to the American people for the first time. And the president hit his marks. You know, the president absolutely met the moment in having that conversation directly with the American people and telling the story about him, being shot and surviving and understanding, that we all need to step back and reflect for a minute on why we're doing what we're doing. And, using this second opportunity to reach out to every American people and let them know that he's going to wake up every day and fight for them. I
know your time is precious, so I've got a ton on my mind, and I guess I'll start by asking you. I want to hit rewind just a little bit, only because I think it's such a seminal moment in American history. You're the chair of the RNC. You're about to have your convention, and the Saturday before it, our candidate, Donald Trump, is nearly killed. I mean, what in the world was going through your mind watching that? I mean, and I don't mean to be as insensitive as to say you've got a convention in a couple of days, but I mean, beyond holy crap, was the president killed? I mean, he wasn't, thank God. You see the fist pump. Are you thinking the convention's over? Honestly, what were you thinking?
No, I mean, the first thought that I had once we found out that the president was okay was anybody else hit?
Yeah.
Was anybody else hurt? And then we found out, unfortunately, that there were 3 other people hurt. One of them who was killed, Corey Competore, and just, when you stop and think about that, these are 3 people who all they did was go to a Trump rally.
Yeah.
To say that they love America, to say that they love, President Trump, and they got shot. And Corey Competore, his family,
Did it change the tone, sir? I'm sorry, but given what you just said, did you guys just kind of tear up the play sheet and say, well, we've got a couple of days to scramble and put on a different kind of convention?
No, I think in terms of the operations and the mechanics of the convention, we were on course and we stayed the course. But I certainly think it changed everybody's approach to what they were going to say. I know I changed my speech.
Yeah,
and I know the president changed his speech.
So here's something that I think a lot of people are on edge about, and I'm just going to be honest with you because I know you hear it all the time, and you get lots of advice or people concerned about this and that. The fact that the Obamas finally came out yesterday and they produced this slick-looking fake conversation where Kamala Harris gets the call from the Obamas, and people are freaked out. All right, I'm just going to be honest because I hear it in my audience today. The people are now starting to get the jitters that this is Obama coming down the tracks all over again. The difference is this is not John McCain and Mitt Romney. This is Donald Trump, first of all. But there's a fear that the propaganda and the money on their side is too much for us to overcome. What do you say about that, Chairman of the RNC, Michael Watley?
We are going to win this election because Donald Trump is going to talk directly to every American family. And there's nothing the Democrats can do, no amount of money that they can raise, that is going to impact our ability to go out and directly communicate with the American voters. We saw that through 4 nights of the convention. We saw that in the rally that we had on Saturday up in Michigan with the president and J.D. Vance together for the first time at a rally. We saw it, over the course of events this week in North Carolina. The president's going to be in Florida tonight. Then he's going to be up in Wisconsin tomorrow. So there are just going to be the opportunity for him to directly communicate with the American people. Look, we've raised $400 million since the day that he became our presumptive nominee. We're going to have the resources that we need to get our message out to every American voter. But I think that the biggest thing that I feel, and I really feel it, is, he's not come down in the polls at all since Joe Biden stepped down. Kamala Harris may be a point or 2 better than Joe Biden was, but, President Trump has a commanding lead in all of these polls, in the battleground polls, because he has a commanding lead in all the issue polls. Kamala Harris has said she is going to double down on every single one of the failed policies over the last 4 years, and she's going to continue to be the open border czar. She is going to continue to allow illegal immigrants to come across our line, 10 million of them so far that we know of, let alone how many we don't know. She is going to continue to support inflationary spending. She's going to continue to support a weakened standing in the world. You look at just what happened with Benjamin Netanyahu. Even in her meeting yesterday, she comes out of it and says, that she does not condemn Hamas. She does not condemn the atrocities of October 7th. And immediately after her speech, Hamas rejects a hostage deal. Her weakness is going to translate into real world implications. And you know what? The world cannot afford for America to be weak. We cannot afford for America to be weak. That's why Donald Trump is the president of strength. And we really see this race does not change in any major way with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, because she's always been part of that ticket, and they're just adopting the same policies.
Here's the other thing, Chairman Watley, that I know you hear this. I have heard this since 2020, and this is the thing you probably hear more than anything else. Republican voters, Trump voters, who are confident Democrats are going to cheat, particularly in places like Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. They're going to cheat, and no matter what we do, they're going to cheat their way to victory. What do you say to people who say that to you? Because I know you hear it a lot.
Well, I do. It's the number one thing that we work on at the RNC. My number one priority is election integrity. That is one of the first conversations that I had with the president when he asked me to run the RNC. We have set up a national election integrity program for the first time in history. We are in the process of recruiting and training over 100,000 volunteers. Every one of your listeners should go to protectthevote.com and sign up, and we will get you registered, we will get you trained, and we will have you deployed as observers. We want to be in the room whenever a vote is being cast, a vote is being counted. We also have been very, very aggressive to make sure that the rules of the road are the right rules of the road to govern the election. So we want, things like only American citizens can vote. It's the law of the land right now, but we need every state to enforce it. We want voter ID. We want basic protections in place for mail-in balloting. And we also want to make sure that the states are cleaning up their voter rolls. So we are very aggressively working on that front. We filed 96 lawsuits in 26 states to try and make sure that we have the right rules governing our elections. And we're going to be very aggressive in making sure that we are going to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat.
Do you believe ultimately that the strategy must be swamp the vote? Do you believe if you're just able to, there are tens of millions of people, as you know, Mr. Watley, that just don't vote. They don't participate for whatever reason. Can you get those low propensity voters out? And is that the ultimate strategy? Get so many folks to finally participate in this election, it's too overwhelming to cheat. Is that the thinking?
Yeah, when we talk about get out the vote, that is exactly what we're talking about. Those low propensity voters who are going to vote Republican, they haven't voted in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. You got to dynamite them off the couch. And that is a huge focus of ours. That is, one of two major initiatives that we are pushing. And, the president has been very clear. If you can't vote on Election Day, go vote early. Vote by mail. You've got to make a plan. And you've got to execute that plan to deliver that vote, because when we get the margins of turnout that we need, we're going to be okay. But there's really two sides of the same coin. Number one, get out the vote. Number two, protect the ballot. And that way we have certainty that everybody who on the Republican side, when they decide whether their vote is going to count, that's a difference, right? So we want them to understand your vote is going to count. Your vote is going to be protected. And we need you to go out and do it. We need you to take a family member or a friend, a coworker, or a colleague.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. I have teenagers, and we were talking, this friend of mine and I were talking about how teenagers consume information. So I have two sons who are going to be able to vote in this election for the first time ever. They consume information differently than I do. They're both Trump voters, by the way. I know that already. But I'm struck by how young people consume information. It's not like we did and do. And so do you guys talk? I'm sure you do. I just don't understand it. So I would love for you to explain, how do you reach the TikTok, YouTube, social media generation? Is there a lot of money and effort being put into that? Because we hear all the time about how they're trying to hip her up. It's brat summer and all this stuff that, older folks just don't quite get, but it's out there. What are you guys doing in that direction?
Well, the president did sign on to TikTok, which was fairly revolutionary. And we have an enormous social media presence, digital media presence. And I think that's one reason we've seen a 20-point shift in younger voters. We are seeing Donald Trump leading among younger voters. That has not happened in my political lifetime, where a Republican candidate has actually been leading among younger voters. And the other thing is just on a policy difference. right? When you talk about voters that are either going to college or coming out of college, they want to have a chance to succeed. Under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, gasoline prices are up 55%. Grocery prices are up 20%. Housing prices are up 20%. And it costs twice as much today to buy the same house as it did 4 years ago. So, when you're talking about people who want to start a career or want to start a family, these are affected voters, and they see what's happening. They understand Kamala Harris is going to double down on all of these failed policies. That's why Donald Trump is surging among the younger voters.
And finally, I've been really driving this home, Chairman Watley, that it is unfair, I think, to hang this entire election outcome on one man. We really all have to do our part. It's not like a football game where we're watching our team and shouting they got to run the ball more, they got to pass the ball more. I mean, it's easy to chirp at you guys about how you're running a campaign. We can actively do things. That's the point you've been driving home with protectthevote.com with Trump Force 47, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We want everybody to be involved. When we have a 4 out of 4 voter, when we have somebody that is out there every election cycle and we know that they're going to vote for us, yes, we need that vote, but it's not enough. We need them to go out and have a conversation. When we talk about the most important statistic in politics is a 5-minute conversation that you have with an undecided voter, because when you have that 5-minute conversation, they're 6% more likely to actually vote and to vote for your candidate. So we need ambassadors. We need people that are going to not just vote, but they're going to drag a friend. They're going to go talk to 10 people in their neighborhood. They're going to talk to 25 people in their social networks and tell them how important it is. When we think about all of the TV commercials, you think about all of the digital ads, you think about all of the emails that you get, at some point you tune it out. And ultimately what it comes back to is, who are you talking to? Who do you trust? And what are they telling you? And so we want to be those trusted voices that are acting as ambassadors and telling their networks to mobilize and get out there and vote.
I lied. This is the last question. Josh Shapiro. If she picks Josh Shapiro as her running mate, a lot of people think, well, he's so popular in Pennsylvania, there goes Pennsylvania. I just ask you to comment on that, and then I promise I'm leaving you alone. Thank you.
Look, I mean, Pennsylvania is obviously a critical state for this election cycle. It is a key battleground state. Right now the president has a lead in Pennsylvania. We feel very good about it. And Josh Shapiro is a very popular candidate. He's a very popular governor up there. We understand that. But people are going to vote on the top of the ticket, and they're going to vote for Donald Trump because he is going to unite America. He is going to restore our southern border. He's going to restore our economy. He's going to restore our standing in the world. He is the only candidate in this race. Right now, he's the only candidate in this race, but that is actually, focused on unifying the country and making every American family have a position, a platform to do better for them and for their children.
Chairman Watley of the RNC, we've not talked before. I hope we can talk again. I'm very grateful for your precious time this morning, sir. Thank you so much. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 election wealth protection report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy. That iconic picture that we all know and the whole country saw, and everybody, if they have a modicum of curiosity in their minds, understands that Trump was nearly killed and don't understand how it happened. I still think that's a seminal event that people are not really taking into account. I think that made a lot of people who are on the fence, if there are people on the margins, sit up and go, wow, it's gotten so bad they're trying to kill the guy. I think that did instinctively change a lot of minds, but him standing up bloodied and shouting fight with that flag flying behind him, somebody put it up on social media, and I put it up and shared it as well. It's a time for choosing. And the scene in Washington, D.C. of the thugs burning the American flag and hoisting the Palestinian flag, and Trump pumping his fist, fight, 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 with the American flag flying behind him. Those visuals are what the election is about. Those visuals are what we are talking about. And, you know, it's incumbent upon, yes, his campaign and all of us to make that case and explain that to folks. I don't think that any amount of speechifying or campaign rallies is going to change that truth and that dynamic. We're in a different place now. If he hits just the right tone in a rally speech, or if he just stops or starts doing this or that, I'm not convinced that that's going to do a damn thing. We're in a different time, a deadly serious time. They're trying to kill or jail this man. They've raided his home. You know what I tell people? How can you support that guy? I say, how can you support raiding a former president's home? How can you support nearly killing the former president? We're talking about jailing, raiding the home of, nearly killing a former president? You can dislike him, but are you comfortable with that's where we've come as a country? Are you comfortable with that? Is that reasonable? We're well past rally speeches and hats, it seems to me. You may disagree, and that's fine. Bits of polling data out there for what it's worth. And this is of likely voters now, one of the first from Rasmussen, of independent voters. No, okay, Democrat 35, Republican 33. So this is of likely voters, Rasmussen, all voters, and it's a little Democrat weighted. This is likely voters now, people that are likely to turn out and vote. Trump with a 7-point edge, according to Rasmussen, 4% undecided or for other. Now, again, it's one poll. I'm not suggesting you hang your hat on it, but Rasmussen said that he's leading big time in swing states. And again, I go back to that MSNBC focus group with the women. Fascinating, did you find that by chance? Do you have that? Because this is a really interesting, am I right? These are all women I just heard the audio of it. I did not actually see the video. Is this a focus group of strictly women in Wisconsin, I believe, with MSNBC?
The one I have pulled up is. They did a focus group separately, but yes, the one that I have is all women.
Because they're talking about views of Kamala Harris with women, I believe specifically in Wisconsin, I think. Anyway, let's listen to this a little bit.
How do you perceive Vice President Harris compared to President Biden in terms of competency and experience?
I think she's worse. She doesn't even know what's going on at the border.
Right.
And that's what she was supposed to be doing and in charge of. I mean, as a school teacher, if I did not do what I was supposed to be doing, you better believe my job would be in jeopardy. Well, it isn't. Not only was her job not in jeopardy, she was just handed a promotion.
Is there anyone that Kamala Harris could appoint as her vice president that you would find reassuring, would make you consider voting for her?
No. Never consider voting for her. No.
I would do RFK Jr. way before her.
Same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And she's not the first woman to run for the presidency, Hillary Clinton. I'm assuming no one voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it's not necessarily going to sway you to vote for a woman in office. When do you think America will have a female president?
When there's a competent one.
I don't get a good feel for her.
I think she's an idiot.
Right.
Mary, why do you think that she's not that bright?
Because she hasn't done anything in the time that she's had. We don't know anything about her as far as her 3 years so far in the White House. She's not real smart.
Folks, that focus group was broadcast on MSNBC. That's the Rachel Maddow network, for those of you that don't know. Those are women in Wisconsin who said, she's incompetent, she's an idiot. I'd be fired from my job if I did what she did. What else is she hiding? She's lied to us about Biden's condition. I'd vote for RFK Jr. sooner than her. Here's another one. Democracy Institute, famous for correctly predicting 2016. Their general election poll shows amongst likely voters, Trump is up 8 right now over Harris. Polls, moment in time, snapshot, not predictive, not hanging my hat, but I'm just telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is not Barack Obama. And so for those of you that are getting jittery and nervous out there that think this is Obama redo and we're going to get, yes, a heavy propaganda campaign, and yes, they're going to treat right. Why do you think they're working so hard to pretend she was never the border czar? You've heard this montage, right? We played this for you yesterday. Newsbusters did a devastating this, in my opinion, this montage, if you haven't shared it on your social media channels and platforms, if you're on Facebook or Instagram or X or TikTok, if you have not shared this montage made by Newsbusters on your social media platform with everybody that follows you and your friends and neighbors, you're making a terrible mistake. This is something that you can do right now, today. This is an actual montage of media today denying that their very colleagues said she was the border czar a couple of years ago. Now they're trying to pretend it never happened. In real time, that's what you're going to hear. The media saying she never was the border czar, butted up against when she was announced. In fact, she was the border czar. Listen.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans
Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Back to those women in Wisconsin and that focus group. Devastating.
How do you perceive Vice President Harris compared to President Biden in terms of competency and experience?
I think she's worse. She doesn't even know what's going on at the border.
Right.
And that's what she was
supposed to be doing
and in charge of. I mean, as a school teacher, if I did not do what I was supposed to be doing, you better believe my job would be in jeopardy. Well, it isn't. Not only was her job not in jeopardy, she was just handed a promotion.
Is there anyone that Kamala Harris could appoint as her vice president that you would find reassuring, would make you consider voting for her?
No. Never consider voting for her. No.
I would do RFK Jr. way before her.
Same. Absolutely.
Yeah. And she's not the first woman to run for the presidency, Hillary Clinton. I'm assuming no one voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it's not necessarily going to sway you to vote for a woman in office. When do you think America will have a female president?
When there's a competent one.
I don't get a good feel for her.
I think she's an idiot.
Right.
Mary, why do you think that she's not that bright?
Because she hasn't done anything in the time that she's had. We don't know anything about her as far as her 3 years so far in the White House. She's not real smart.
So, folks, again, that's that's an MSNBC female-focused group trying to drive this historic first woman business. Aren't you going to vote for the lady? No, she's incompetent. What the hell's she done? And not one time during that entire discussion, Fast Eddie, did you hear any question about Donald Trump and being nice or mean, or the hat, or I don't like his tone, or... I'm not saying those women are excited about Trump. I'm not even saying they're going to vote for him. I don't know. But why be intimidated by Kamala Harris? I mean, the die is cast. She's not Obama. They know who she is. They're paying attention. So are a lot of other people. So this cable news makeover that you're treating yourself to a steady diet of, we all are absorbing because it's annoying, but we have to pay attention. It's not working. She has a resume, and it's a resume of failure and radicalism. And frankly, yes, incompetence, not terribly bright. Hey, Mike Lindell and My Pillow, you know the name. 20 years, they've been singing the jingle on Fox News and on the radio. And it's no secret that Mike and the company have come under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attack. Big box stores have tossed My Pillow from their stores. Even the online retailers now won't sell My Pillow products. And who does that hurt, really? I mean, yeah, I understand they don't like Mike's position on the election or whatever, but Mike employs hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Minnesotans who make great products. If you know the My Pillow products, I sleep on them every night. So does my dog Dean. They're great products, and he wants to sell them to you at unbelievable prices, by the way, but they're backed with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee, and most importantly, again, they're made here in the United States. So it's not something he's asking me to say. It's just something I'd like to remind you of, that a guy who has an opinion, who happens to own a very successful American company and employs a lot of Americans who make great American products that a lot of you have bought and owned or are looking to buy and own. I just want you to know that while he takes it on the chin a lot out there for having the positions he has, he wants to keep his employees busy. He wants to keep the company moving along, and so he's passing on huge, huge savings to you in what he's calling the $25 extravaganza. Getting the word out, I want to invite you to check out this $25 extravaganza today. 2 multi-pack My Pillows, just $25. My Pillow sandals, just $25. I'm looking at the list of these deals right now. 6-pack towel set, just $25. 6-pack of towels, $25. And the My Pillows with the new Giza fabric, just $25. And here's the thing, if you order any or all of this stuff, if you exceed $75 with your order, he ships it to you for free. So free shipping on anything $75 or over. And look, with all those deals and so many more at just $25 a piece, I think you'll be very, very pleased with not just the quality, but the price point and the free shipping. It's MyPillow.com. I hope you'll use the promo code ChrisPodcast. MyPillow.com, ChrisPodcast, to take advantage of all these savings. Get that free shipping over $75. Or call 800-932-5056. Great operators, American-based operators. You can call and say, hey, I'm with you. And hang in there. 800-932-5056. Don't forget the promo code ChrisPodcast. It lets them know you listen, which I appreciate, but more importantly, get you that deal. MyPillow.com or 800-932-5056. Promo code ChrisPodcast. I have to ask you, Mr. Kellogg, a question about just the state of the military generally. Kamala Harris now is their nominee. She's going to have to explain, it seems to me, Lloyd Austin. She's going to have to explain the withdrawal from Afghanistan. She's going to have to explain the forced shot, the thinning ranks, right? I mean, at some point, if we're going to have a debate with her about being the next commander-in-chief, doesn't she have to explain her current boss's diminished returns with our military?
Yeah, Chris, boy, you're asking to unpack a lot in a short period of time. Really, she does. When you look at Vice President Harris, she really doesn't have the chops to really do this job as commander-in-chief, under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, when you think about the responsibilities of it. And the military is such a critical piece. And the military is really in a state of, I would say, disrepair right now, which is shocking when you look at the large amount of money we spend on the military. But it's not so much the money or the systems, it's the leadership. And that leadership is selected by the commander-in-chief, by the president. That's who does it. When I talk about leadership, I'm talking about the civilian leadership and also the military leadership, primarily the 3- and 4-star levels. Because when you go up to 2 stars, it's really merit-based. But when you get to 3 stars and 4 stars, admirals or generals, those are all selected by a political process, and they're actually political. I hate to say it, but I'm a retired 3-star. But that's how the process actually works. And she is, frankly, clueless about it. And people will probably get their hackles up when I say like that. Well, that's a partisan comment. I said, no, she just doesn't have the background for it. I mean, she really doesn't. She hasn't done it. She hasn't had experience to do it. And now you would put her in a position of deciding on war and peace, on where you engage with your adversaries throughout the world. So when I look at it, the world's a mess right now. And I'm very, very concerned about her and her leadership, and that's to be very candid about it. And I'm sure, again, as I mentioned a second ago, people say, well, that's a really partisan comment. No, it's not really, because I've had my daughter and son in combat in Afghanistan, and I've had my son involved in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. I've been there, done it, kind of know what it takes, and I've been involved in it as well. So it's a messy process we're going forward with. I do have major concerns about it.
Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg with us. Again, he is the National Security Advisor. He was part of the National Security team in the Trump administration. Serious times. We live in very, very serious times. And again, you have to consider this person becomes the new commander-in-chief. And I don't know if the country is in a place where they're really thinking about national security. But when you talk about an open border, when you talk about the situation with Israel, you talk about China, you talk about Russia and Ukraine, and that's not all, Iran. I mean, these are serious things. I don't know where the country places these international bubbling pots in terms of, kind of what our domestic problems are. But I think certainly the open border you can tie directly to so many of our domestic problems. Is this something you think the Trump campaign should focus on, international security and stability and diplomacy? Should they drive this home with her? Is this going to be a key component of their criticism of her?
Oh, I think so, Chris. And look, when it comes to the commander-in-chief, I'd ask your listeners to really sit back and think about this. When you think about war and peace and commander-in-chief, think about for those that are married and have children, the most precious resource you have, the most precious thing you own or have, are your sons and daughters. And a commander-in-chief, when he commits forces to action, when you go kinetic or go to war, you're going to commit those young men and women to a fight. And you're going to take losses. And because of those losses, you have to be willing to accept that, to accept the risks to do it. And understand the ultimate state is when you have to go to a dignified transfer to Dover Air Force Base and to reserve the remains of those who have been killed in action. That takes a lot of, that should have Americans sit back and think, do I really want this person in charge of not nuclear weapons, but a responsibility for committing our men and women to combat? That's an enormous task, and it's it's very, very risky. And it's a hard decision to make. And I'm not sure she's up to it. I just don't. I mean, I listen to her, I watch her, I've seen what she's done, and you got to go, okay, does she really have the character to do that? Look, I thought what happened a week ago in Pennsylvania, in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the president, and I've experienced that. I've experienced rifle fire and hand fire, but when he was shot and hit, and then stood up and said, fight, 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 that shows the character of a man, of a person. And he showed America his character that day. She's never shown that. President Biden's never shown that. And I think Americans should sit back and say, is this really, take all this emotion aside, is this really who we want leading our men and women in combat? Does this person have the skill to do it? And do I think it's going to be a part of the campaign? Absolutely, it must be, because the most important thing we have is war and peace, and that is decided primarily by the commander-in-chief, the president.
We're in such a bizarre time. I don't have to tell you. We all understand how bizarre things are. Benjamin Netanyahu flies stateside here. He's prepared for the week to meet with lots of folks. He's going to give a joint address to Congress. No one from the Biden administration greets him. He gets off the plane and no one, not a single senior official. Not Biden, not Harris. Biden, of course, was, we weren't even sure if Biden was alive or dead, literally. They wheel him back to the White House yesterday, after Netanyahu's already arrived. Kamala Harris has already said not only is she not greeting him when he arrives, she's not going to be in the joint address. She's not even attending. They're going to meet with him behind closed doors in private, no cameras. So it's abundantly clear that this Democrat Party, Biden and Harris, do not want to be seen in public with him. They're not going to greet him just upon arrival. What does that say to him, and what should that say to all Americans? Meanwhile, you have all these anti-Semites chanting in the Capitol Rotunda yesterday, opposing his visit.
Yeah, I think what it says, what do our adversaries say? The fact that he was not met by the president or vice president or secretary of state or secretary of defense or anybody is stunning. I mean, he's a democratically elected leader in a democratic country in the Middle East. And I understand there's been differences between he and Biden, and actually he and Trump as well. But you have to line up behind your friends. And Netanyahu is a friend, they're an ally, and they're an ally at war. And anytime we create a gap or seam, which we've done, our adversaries see that. So they can push the envelope a little bit further. And they just expand the war. And a lot of these relationships are very, very important, because leader relationships matter. And I know Netanyahu's going to fly down to Florida and meet up with President Trump. But the fact of the matter is that when you don't have our leaders talking to leaders, and I mean adversaries as well, that's a huge mistake. And then the ultimate insult is, where is Kamala Harris going to be? She's going to be the sorority function in Indiana instead of coming back here and meeting with somebody who's a leader engaged in war. It's absolutely stunning to me. Now, it's the first meeting in person since Biden took office with Netanyahu here in the United States. And I mentioned Trump had issues with Netanyahu as well, but at least he talked to him all the time.
Yeah, and you can bet, General, you can bet that Donald Trump is going to make a very visible showing of his meeting with Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. Can't you imagine?
Oh, absolutely. But look, just recently he reached out to, what happened is Zelensky of Ukraine reached out to President Trump, and he talked to him as well. Of course he is, and he should, because the man is a leader of a nation at war, a democratically elected leader, the only democracy in the Middle East, democratically elected government in the Middle East. And you can't stiff them, because all you're going to do is expand the war. What do you think the Iranians see? What do you think that Hezbollah sees, or even Hamas sees, or anybody in that region, what do they think about the United States of American leadership? And that's the thing I get concerned about. You may not like somebody, Chris, but you got to talk to them. And we're not even doing that.
Keith Kellogg is the former national security advisor in the Trump administration. It's almost impossible to ask you this question because you're a serious man who's thought seriously and been in serious positions with the highest levels of the United States government. But let me just ask you to imagine for a moment. You're the national security advisor, and you're told that the commander-in-chief is going to effectively quit his campaign. He's not going to run for a second term, and he does it via pre-typed memo and a chicken scratch signature issued on social media, and he's not visibly seen for days. I really do wonder, if you're a serious person like you are in national security, what in the world kind of message was that mess this last week?
Yeah, it's a terrible signal, and you have to, Chris, strip away the emotion of it. And this is really where you have to seriously think about the 25th Amendment. But the vice president has to lead that. But over half the cabinet has to weigh in as well. And I don't think they're going to do it. But you'd have to sit back and say, maybe it's time that you also just say, I'm not qualified because of my diminished capacity to be president of the United States. It's pretty serious business, because you just open the United States up as a nation, our nation, to threats from abroad at a very, very high level. I mean, I'm absolutely concerned about it, but I'll be very honest with you, Chris. I talked to a very senior writer from a major publication just the other day. I was stunned by his response, and I said, we all saw this. We all saw diminished capacity of President Biden. And this individual said, this is a guy who has a major writer in a major publication here in D.C. He said, well, we really didn't notice it until the debate. I said, excuse me? What are you saying? You said you just ignored it. And I was stunned when he made that comment. And if he said something like that, how many people just said, oh, it's right-wing propaganda? No. And because of that, they put the nation at risk, and they have put the nation at risk. So I think the Democratic leadership and a lot of the mainstream media is culpable for what we're seeing today. And so even though the 25th Amendment is the right route, they won't do it. And I think we'll just have to accept the fact, whether I like it or not, that we're going to have a diminished capacity president for the next few months. And it's the way it's going to be.
If God forbid something, and we can presume something will because it's just the time we live in, something's going to happen. I don't know what. I mean, God forbid it's something that takes people's lives, but you can imagine an attack. You can imagine something big. You can imagine a big hurricane or weather event or something. It will interrupt this campaign cycle. Something big is going to happen. You can just almost bet on it, right? And so if that's the case, is it going to be Harris time? Is she going to be the one that's going to be springing into the lead here? Or, you got a guy who's still pretending to be president in Biden. Like when the excrement hits the fan here, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who's going to take the lead here, do you think, this summer and fall?
Well, I think it's going to be collective. A collective issue with Secretary of Defense, Blinken, Secretary of State, and Harris, and Biden as well. And I'm concerned about the decision-making process. We always talk about an October surprise during the election, a presidential election. And I'm not now unconvinced that we won't see actually in October aliens actually show up at our front doorstep. I said this is reached the point where I'm just stunned by it. But when I was with President Trump, there was no doubt in my mind who the commander-in-chief was with his decision-making. And I don't care if it was killing Soleimani or Baghdadi or defeating ISIS. I don't care what it was. He was there. Now I say this is a collective process. And you've got a president who actually, when you look at his DNA, he's risk-averse. He's always been risk-averse. Remember, Chris, this is the guy, when Obama went after Osama bin Laden, when they were in the situation, one individual said, don't do it. And that was Vice President Biden at the time. So if something happens, how it works is you get together in the Situation Room, we talk about it, but it's one of those, I just think it's going to be delays. And if you delay in any crisis situation, you're automatically behind the curve, whether you like it or not. And the decision-making just gets harder and harder and harder. Remember, this is a guy who said when the Russians were getting ready to invade Ukraine again after Crimea, he said, well, maybe a minor incursion's okay. That was an actual statement from him. And so I wonder about the decision-making process. We were told when Biden came into office that they were going to bring adults back in the room. I said, wrong. It's kids in the sandbox time. And he doesn't have the capacity right now. She doesn't have, to me, the chops, meaning Harris. And I don't know where Lloyd Austin is. You don't see him anywhere on the radar. And Blinken is questionable as well. So, and I also question the NSA, Jake Sullivan. So this is, I think it's a very, very dangerous time. I think it's the most dangerous time in America since 1938, when you had Chamberlain go to Munich and said we're going to have peace in our time, and a year later, World War II broke out. I just think we're in that dangerous era that we have to be very, very cautious about. And I think Americans need to realize that this election is going to be about our security, one of the future. You know, Chris, I reminded what Benjamin Franklin said when he was asked after the Constitutional Convention, when he asked, what did you give us? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. Man, I think we're about that time right now.
Yeah. Keith Kellogg, if memory serves, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll let you go on this. I don't recall ever seeing a photo of these people gathered in the Situation Room until Donald Trump was shot. Am I misremembering? And it was like a day or two later, they released this photo of Biden and Harris and everybody seriously sitting around the Situation Room table. And I was struck, one, that they released it. It was kind of this very purposeful showing of, solidarity. They're taking it seriously. But then I thought, I don't know that I've ever seen, in all that we've gone through, have we ever seen them in the Situation Room related to anything? Seriously. Maybe we have, and I don't remember.
Chris, I don't remember seeing very much there at all. I mean, that's the place where you make the hard decisions, and because it's so secure and where you bring all the cabinet officials in. But look, this is the same guy, Biden, who hasn't had a cabinet meeting in over a year. Think about that. I mean, we have him every month, and you bring him in. And they also said in the last cabinet meeting a year ago, he had scripted questions and answers. In other words, the cabinet secretary, Secretary of the Interior, would be asked a question, and he would respond with a written answer. And stunning to me, that just shows the capacity or the diminished capacity of the President of the United States. So no, I don't think he's there. It's always a photo op. And we have a lot of those, but I mean, he just doesn't do it. That's just not his style. Because I think what I think they were doing, Chris, was actually protecting Biden from basically the population writ large, and that's the reason that comment was made to me by a reporter from a major newspaper. Yeah. Just stunned me as well.
Yeah, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, we're so grateful for your perspective, and another reason why we hope to see Donald Trump reelected is we know you'll have a seat at the table, a sober adult. Thank God, we need that. Thank you so much for your time, sir. I hope you'll come back.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.